Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for day number 8 of our 6 custom mail-in tournament. Our first group of today contains the racers known as Graveyard King, Nitro, Little Fritter, and Il Topo. The race begins and Il Topo takes an early lead, and they are working with the inside lane. Let's see how they use it. It seems to help as they launch ahead like a rocket and are now much further ahead of the pack. They're now heading into the winding turns. They are popping loose a little bit, so that'll cost them some speed. But now they have the outside lanes that may or may not affect them. We'll have to see. Now they're heading into the final turn, now heading towards the finish line. Kind of swerving a little bit, going across the lane, bouncing off the walls. But they still manage to get the win. 14.09 is their finishing time. Remember, the fastest time is still 13.33, set all the way back on day 2 by Stevie C. And Stevie C is currently one of only 3 racers that have won every single race they've been in so far. The other 2 being Numbskull and Ronnie. And you can see they had a big lead over the rest of the pack. Now granted, 14.09, you definitely want to try and pick up the pace knowing what the fastest time is. But you definitely will have more opportunities the better you position yourself. And now for race number 2, can Il Topo do it again? Can he be among the people in the expanding list of sweepers? He did have the outside lane, but that actually seemed to help him because he was falling behind ever so slightly. But then he grabbed the lead back. Seems to be handling those winding turns a little bit better this time around. Now heading into the straight path before the final turn. And with the inside lane, here he goes. Now heading into the lane merger. He's starting to skid sideways, that'll cost him some speed. But they managed to finish in first again anyways. And I think that was a slightly slower time this time around. But I believe that if they can handle the winding turns and then keep straight as they head towards the finish, they'll pull off something beneath the 14-second mark. And you can see they started to lose control, managed to gain it back. And that can be absolutely crucial in some of these races, because if you lose a lot of speed, people can pass you like you just saw. As it just happened to Nitro. Now Il Topo is 1 win away from moving on to today's finals, 2 wins away from getting a sweep. And as the race begins, Il Topo is once again back out in front. Can they maintain it? With one of the 2 middle lanes, they are pulling away once more. And now they're heading into the winding turns. Let's see how they handle it. Their back end seems to be popping up a little bit. But just as quickly as it happens, they get their wheels back on the ground and they keep going. And now they're heading towards the finish line. No one else in sight. But their back end clipped the side of the railing. Lost control for just a moment. But they strategically used the opposite wall to straighten out. 14.25 is their finishing time now. So they're at least relatively consistent even when they get shaken up a little bit. You can see even by the time they get towards the finish line, the rest of the racers are just getting onto the last part of the track. Granted, just because something like this may happen, it doesn't mean you want to get cocky. Because then you risk making some very simple mistakes which could cost you greatly. But now that Il Topo is guaranteed to move on to the finals, he doesn't have to worry as much, unless he at least wants to get a sweep if nothing else. Now he's back out in the lead. The other 3 are trying to make something happen here. Nitro picking up a little bit of speed. But the gap may just be too vast between him and Il Topo. Now heading towards the final turn. Into the lane merger he goes. It looks like he got spun around very quickly. But he kept his momentum up for the most part and finished in first yet again. So Il Topo has a sweep and has a chance to stay undefeated by the end of today's races. Now it's just a matter of who is going to be joining Il Topo in today's finals. You can see that the other three racers are staying pretty close together throughout the rest of the race. It's just Il Topo who's pulling away from them. Even after the first part of the track, he gets his distance and maintains it. This car's looking a little lopsided, actually, kind of leaning towards one side. But it is Little Fritter who is joining Il Topo in today's finals. And now we'll see who in the second group is going to fill the other two spots between Trash Panda, Black Rhino, Flipper, and Mason Dixon. The race begins, and it is currently Mason Dixon out in the lead, starting with the inside lane. And just like Il Topo before them, they are pulling away, but it looks like their competition is not as far behind until at least they got to that turn. But look at this, as they go through the outside lane, they slowed down significantly, but they're still maintaining the lead. He slowed down quite a bit, but they managed to maintain the lead and get the win. Some of these other races do have some speed, but the fact is they still finished in third and fourth. So if you had some speed towards the end, that's great. However, if you don't have it in the rest of the race, then that speed burst at the end basically is obsolete. So for now, people are going to keep their eyes on Mason Dixon, who got the first win. Whether or not they'll be able to do it again remains to be seen. Trash Panda was giving them some competition for brief moments. So let's see if switching up the lanes causes an effect. Black Rhino had the lead for just a moment, but they can't seem to keep straight and keep focused. And that caused them to start falling behind. Mason Dixon back out in the lead. Trash Panda trying to maintain something, and Mason Dixon flipped over. Trash Panda now out in the lead. This could be the break some of the other racers needed. We'll have to see, though. Just because someone else didn't finish doesn't mean you won't either. But Trash Panda skidded across the finish line in first with a not very good time, but the fact of the matter is, this could be the break they needed. A very unfortunate occurrence for Mason Dixon, who started off with the win and now is not getting any points in this race. This could be a problem. That first place finish in the first leg is definitely going to help them here. But even then, a 5 and a 0 is still only 5. So they will definitely have to be more careful, otherwise their promising start could be the only thing going for them. These are still in second in points. They're actually tied right now after 2 races, with Flipper finishing in second. I'm sure Mason Dixon will at least attempt to be more careful. Some of these racers are fishtailing, but now Mason Dixon is out in the lead, followed closely by Trash Panda. Flipper actually trying to make up some ground. Doesn't seem to be working too well, though. Mason Dixon did manage to get through the winding turns this time around. Flipper actually closing the gap pretty well. And now they have the inside lane. Can they use that to their advantage? So far it doesn't seem like it, as Mason Dixon is pulling away, manages to get the win. And then Trash Panda managed to grab second place from Flipper before they got to the finish line. And now Rhino suffered a similar fate that Mason Dixon had in the last race. They just could not maintain their balance, ended up on their side. There was just so much momentum going in one direction that they couldn't keep all their wheels on the ground. Very unfortunate, to be sure. Any opportunity that Rhino had may have just been lost. But now there's only one race left. Trash Panda is in a much better position compared to the others. Now it's just whether or not Mason Dixon or somebody else entirely will be able to join them. With that non-finish by Mason Dixon in race 2, things got a little bit more interesting. It definitely left the window open for Flipper, possibly Rhino, but we'll have to see. In fact, Trash Panda is out in the lead right now with the outside lane though, but they are managing to keep the lead by about a length or two. But here comes Mason Dixon now grabbing the lead for themselves, heading towards the finish line, picking up speed, manages to get the win. From the looks of things, I believe Mason Dixon and Trash Panda will be the ones moving on to today's final. Now let's check how they managed to do in those snake way turns, or winding turns. There's multiple things we could call this. It looked like Rhino was losing balance, but they managed to save it. That being said, they still ended up finishing in 4th, so I believe they are out. And it is Mason Dixon and Trash Panda. Mason managing to grab first place in points. And now for our final, Mason Dixon and Trash Panda are joined by Il Topo and Little Fritter. The race begins. Il Topo, who is currently the only person with a sweep right now, looking to stay undefeated. So that extra determination may give them the boost they need to get to that point. They have a much bigger lead over everybody else, including the likes of Mason Dixon. So let's see if he can keep on their wheels. Mason heading towards the finish line, starting to spin out, heading backwards now, but they still managed to get the win. You could tell they were starting to lose control, which we will take another look at once they got into the lane merger, but they still managed to pull off a victory. As we take a look here, Il Topo did manage to get their back end in the air for just a moment, but they got back on track quite literally and kept the race going. Trash Panda managed to keep their nose in front of Mason Dixon, so they will have second place here. Now for race number 2. Knowing how close some of these races have gotten, this just got a lot more interesting. Il Topo is 3 races away from being the 4th undefeated racer in this tournament so far. And given how much of a lead they have over everybody else, it's looking quite likely, as long as they don't flip over, spin out, or anything like that. Just maintain the speed, the balance, and control. And it's pretty much in the bag. They do start to skid a little bit, but once again, they strategically use the wall to straighten themselves out. Mason Dixon, who seemed to be doing well up until the last moment, ended up finishing in 4th after all that. So that's not looking very good. Look at this. They are out in 2nd, at least up until here. But by the time they get to the final stretch, they are way back in 4th. Somewhere along the way, they lost some speed. They tried to get past Trash Panda, but to no avail. And now the points are spread out a little bit more evenly. But Il Topo with 2 wins under their belt, 1 more will secure it for them. And 2 more will get them on that list of undefeated racers. They use the wide turn to pick up some speed. Mason Dixon currently in 2nd. But here comes Little Fritter and Trash Panda. Can Mason Dixon stay on their wheels? That could make the difference here. It's hard to tell though, when Il Topo is so far ahead that no one else can even be seen. It looked like Mason was still in 2nd, but we'll have to see what happens as they get to the finish line, where Il Topo just finished in 1st. Mason does finish in 2nd, followed by Fritter and then Trash Panda. Mason Dixon just possibly saved their entire tournament experience with that 2nd place finish. If they can do it again, they might actually be able to secure it. But we still have 1 race to go. Il Topo is guaranteed to move on to the next part of the tournament. Now they are just keeping their eye on staying undefeated. So now it all comes down to this race here. Il Topo already grabbing a lead, trying to stay in front of the rest of the pack. They have one of the middle lanes, so their speed will probably be averaged out. Mason Dixon now trying to catch up to them, but they have the outside lane. Trash Panda now passing them. Il Topo maintaining a lead right now, Can they keep control? They start to lose it usually around the time the lanes are merged together. But they have one of the middle lanes. They use the wall to keep straight, and they finish in first. Il Topo is your next currently undefeated racer. After 8 days, we have 4. And I think everybody managed to finish. It's just a matter of who finished where. Because that will make all the difference. Mason Dixon was right next to Trash Panda going through those winding turns. And it is Mason Dixon who ended up finishing in second. In fact, Trash Panda ended up finishing in fourth after all that. So Mason Dixon just barely managed to squeak their way into the next part of the tournament alongside Il Topo. Thank you all so much for watching, and we will see you next time.